Hi all, I have another very interesting game to show you from the Chess.com Computer Championship, Rapid Rumble, 15 minutes with a 5-second increment. This was in stage 2. Leela 11089 playing against Fire 7.1. E4, the first 4 half moves or ply are given to them, and it's here that it ends. Leela plays D4, and now we have E6. When Leela was playing black, we had C5, and a very interesting continuation, B5, but that's not the case here. Okay, so E6, it seems Fire doesn't mind going into a potentially French defense style pawn structure here. We have Knight C3. A relevant game in Chess-Based Live Book, Knight F3 was played in R. Nielsen against M. Vervulin. That was in 2018 and ended in a win for black. So there's a stem game in the pinned comment if you want to check that out. So Knight C3 though, here, Knight E7. Bishop drops back, maybe in advance of D5. So D5 here, Knight F3. Now black has the option of taking on E4. But this wasn't played. I think this looks as though white should be okay. Even white can actually volunteer this bishop to exchange off there and should be okay. Or if it doesn't come off, it just looks very pleasant for white in this position. In fact, even H4 is possible with some ominous ideas. So we have actually here the move. Instead, we have H6. A predecessor game, a high-level predecessor game, is Wall against Chatibalev in 2002, which saw black castling here instead immediately, and then after E5 striking at the centre. But this ended in a win for white. Actually, white took and eventually won in 36 moves. So it's been seen a little bit before this territory. H6, white castled. Now Knight B C6, so not trying to hit white's centre with pawns. E5, B6. We have Knight E2, which gives rise to the possibility of moving the C pawn, especially to C3. After Knight E5, white preserves that bishop. On C3 here, giving up the bishop doesn't seem like a very good idea. This looks like a very even position with the fracture as well, black having the bishop here. So Bishop A4 check, Bishop D7, C3, not minding the exchange of light square bishops here. And in fact, black obliges. Queen D7, hitting the queen drops back. C5 now, so hitting the centre like that. But black is a long way off putting significant pressure on D4. Look how stable this looks. Now, H4, black castles. Castling queenside, you might think, should be considered, but actually it seems not B4. This doesn't seem to lead to anything in my analysis, because black ends up with a position where it doesn't even matter about C4. Like F5 here, for example, this is good because there's always a light square blockade here. In fact, it seems if black castled, probably best is to try and take control of a central square like this. Try and take control of D4 and then peel open slowly or gain space on the queen side like this, but respecting that central D4 square basically is more effective, it seems. So black castled kingside though, and we have Bishop F4, which can of course be used for potential batteries against H6. At the moment though, there's a Knight C4 issue to factor in. Black took on D4 and played H5 here. You might wonder, this is committal, isn't it, asking later for a G4 at some point? Why provide this leverage to rip open potentially the G file? Isn't this just too dangerous? If we look at a less committal move like Rook AC8, B3 keeps the knight out of C4, for example. Then we can have this battery without intrusion of Knight C4. And you might think, well, H6 is held, but actually let's look. This is an example I've analysed where this is very, very good scenario for white after H5. There's too much pressure being brought to bear on H6, and if black tries to close here to stop HG, then bang, bishop takes, knight takes, queen D3. This is just too This is actually a crushing scenario. White just crushes here. It's all over. Once a knight's installed on f6, it's like checkmating, or a massive advantage anyway. So yeah, there's scenarios where it seems that it's unlikely that h5, there's some purpose instead of putting the king on h7, which is asking for different stuff, basically putting the king on h7, for that h5 to be ripped open. So we have h5, knight g3. So the knight is actually in front of the g-pawn for a while now, but it guards that knight against knight f5, discourages that. We have c8, bishop g5, queen d8, queen d2. So now actually the bishop's not on f4, so there's queen f4 on knight c4, for example. That could be dangerous. In fact, that wasn't tested. Queen f8, bishop f6 here, rook c7. Yeah, leaving a form pawn on f6 is a dangerous idea quite often, and here is also the case. This example, the form pawn on the king side but building up on the queen side, gives white a massive position. Basically, it's not worth taking on f6. Basically, this is a disaster scenario. White gets a huge advantage. So taking on f6 is not advisable, it seems. Rook c7, rook fc1, challenging just to c-file for a moment. Knight c4. You might think, by the way, bishop h6 here. Intriguingly, this is a shocking variation. Guess what white can play in this position? Because you might think this battery is useful for bishop h6 to be annoying. But what can white play here if I give you 5 seconds to pause the video in this variation? Okay, it seems as though the queen sack is actually working very well here. 2 pieces but a huge pressure, and after knight g5 huge pressure on f7, and in fact because of these knight issues the knights are kind of holding on to each other. It seems white just gets a massive advantage basically after the queen sack. So it doesn't bear thinking about to play bishop h6 here. That's something to note. So knight c4, queen f4. Yeah, not carrying. Well, the knight's pinned to the rook at the moment, so b2 is not the biggest concern. b3 anyway now. Knight a5. Exchange off. Leela exchanges off a pair of rooks, and now knight g5. Bishop h6 now pinning the knight. Queen f3 dropping back out of the pin. Knight c6 hitting d4. On bishop takes here, you might wonder, is this worth checking out? Not really. It's pretty unpleasant stuff. Basically, this is just the scenario. Even e6 smashing through. This is going to be very nice for white. So knight ac6, the d pawn's protected. Knight b4, as though the a2 pawn's an issue. That's actually protected, it seems, as well as guarding the second rank a bit. Yeah, I mean, king h2, maybe black is okay to take potentially. Rook d2, rook c6. On the invasion, rook c2, invasionary, that's not a word. Rook takes, knight e2, protecting d4. This turns out to be quite pleasant. This position is quite pleasant for white. So rook c6, king h2, rook c1, knight e2 hitting the rook. Rook drops back. g4 now. Finally, yeah, this knight had gone out of the way with tempo against that rook. Now g4. So now some implications for that g-file for black's king safety are starting to be revealed. So knight f5 looks cozy for a moment, doesn't it? Knight g3 challenging that though. Bishop g7. On knight takes g3 here, queen takes this position. The knight can be kicked and white can arrange actually the use of the f3 square here. Look at this. This is very embarrassing with that pawn wedge stopping any f5, etc. That's just crushing. So that's something to be borne in mind here. Kicking the knight rook d3 to f3 is a little trick. If black ever, plays knight takes g3, there's exposure basically on f7 in some lines. Bishop g7, rook e2, knight drops to h6, hitting the queen. Queen moves. Rook c3, h5. Yeah, continuing the mining of black's king side. The ground. the crown jewels of the king are at stake. Knight d3. Queen h4, making use of that vacant square now after h5. Bishop takes here. Ooh, form pawn. Form pawn, guys. Form pawns. The power of the form pawn here. Now, if black didn't do that, knight b4, say hg, yeah, bishop takes. This position is unpleasant, hitting the queen, which is holding the knight. But here, knight f4, that knight, where is it going? It's just horrible. It's just a disaster scenario. This is just horrendous. For example, here, e6. It's just, everything's really bad for black here. Okay, so we have bishop takes f6. E takes. Yeah, this looks already a desperate position for black. This here, yeah, it doesn't look like a picture of health because of hg and knight e6 concerns. This g-file is just ready and waiting. Little nudge of the pawn to make way for the rook to use the g-file now, and depriving the knight of knight g4 check. Dual purpose, attacking and defending. b5, pretty irrelevant. Rook g2, yes. King safety. Knight e1, rook g1, check. Yeah, this knight takes f3 check here is you can imagine doesn't work too well after knight takes h5 check. Knight f4, and then black has to get desperate really and just get slaughtered, as you might imagine in these situations. It's a slaughter time. So yeah, it's pretty much gone here because of king safety. Here, knight d3, knight h3, and now desperate knight g4. Yeah, this is just a winning form pawn attack. The power of the form pawn. Yeah, knight h3 is cute to stop knight f2 check being dangerous. So knight g4 on king h7. Let's have a look at a nice line of disaster. Queen takes h5, for example. Knight e2 is possible. After here, knight g5 check. Knight takes f7 check. Winning the queen is good enough. So yeah, it's all pretty disastrous now. Knight g4, that's taken. G takes h5. Knight f1 hitting nothing actually, but opening up the g file. Rook c3, queen g5. This is just a piece up scenario with a form pawn, which is also really dangerous. Hitting the knight. A lot of things just win here. The king actually goes back there to the firing line after check. Yeah, I mean, it looks as though anything's possible, like taking here. The game's pretty much over. But, yeah, or taking the knight, anything really. Leela plays this and wants to checkmate, basically, with a knight coming to f7 to deliver a checkmate. So he uses this knight. Knight takes f7. Mate is threatened. Check. Check. Here to the shield against knight f7 for a moment. h6, not even taking the knight. Sadistic Leela comes out. So h7 with the idea of rook g8 checkmate here. Not bothering material. Check. 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 Spite checks. Checkmate. So what do we learn from this game? Well, it seems Leela's treatment playing black was a little bit better with the immediate c5 and the pawn structures. Seemed in Leela's, when Leela was playing black, king safety wasn't such a major issue. In this French defense structure, it seems that pawn wedge is pretty dangerous. The way Leela played it, once h5 was played, it was like the longer term plan to rip open the g file. And there wasn't too much distraction for black's queenside counterplay. Can it be called counterplay on the queen side? Didn't seem to do anything. Didn't even win a pawn. In fact, the pawns are symmetrical over here in this final position. There didn't seem to be any issue on the queen side whatsoever. So a nice attacking game, basically, and avoiding. It seems fire is a good customer in this tournament for Leela. Fire is not transitioning into drawn endgames like all the other engines seem to be able to do against Leela. So if you're wondering why there's so many Fire wins, well, that's the reason. Leela definitely needs to improve her table-based somehow integration, but yeah, there are some thoughts on that on the forums if you want to check out the Leela forums. Okay. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.